Welcome to this special edition of Robert Reads. In this edition, we'll actually review the life and work of Dante Alighieri. Dante's life was one spent in very tumultuous times. He was born in Florence, Italy, around 1265, and his life was marked by political conflict between two aristocratic families, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. He was exiled from his beloved city, Florence, due to his political beliefs, and embarked on a wandering life that deeply influenced much of his future work. He was also very heavily influenced by a courtier woman by the name of Beatrice Portinari. Through that, he came to an understanding of love and loss, and his encounter with Beatrice at a very, very young age profoundly shaped him. Her death became a central theme in a lot of his work, especially his early work entitled La Vita Nuova, the New Life in English, where it explored many themes of courtly love and spiritual connection. Of course, the great work from which he is renowned is known as the Divine Comedy. It was an imagined, it's a narrative poem, it's an epic poem that depicted an allegorical journey through hell, purgatory, and paradise. It's a very complex masterpiece that explores themes of morality and redemption and the nature of love and justice. Um, the work was unique in that he wrote it in his own Florentine dialect. Uh, and what it did is it elevated the vernacular Florentine dialect to be part of literary language. And it really was quite influential in the development of modern Italian. When one can look at his work and its subsequent influence of making him something of a champion of the vernacular language. Um, his legacy endures to this day. He's kind of considered the father of Italian language, and he's well regarded throughout most of Western literature. And the Divine Comedy continues to be studied and admired for its very, very rich symbolism, its philosophical depth, and its enduring exploration of the human experience. The poetic length of Dante's work here, of Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, those are the three sections that make up the Divine Comedy, actually comprises a little over 3,000 lines. Inferno, which is the first piece, is just slightly longer than the other two, at around 1,100 lines roughly. And obviously, being able to read the whole thing is not practical for something like this. But I am going to read the opening lines. And, the opening lines are often recited in a number of different poetic works or derivative work, and it's become somewhat iconic. What I'm going to do as part of this, I'm just going to read a few lines in Italian so that it gives you the sense of the lyricality and rhyming that was present in the original work and subsequently by the same lines in English to provide a better understanding. Um, the other piece I will be reading is actually the point whereby which Dante meets his guide through this journey, which is Virgil the poet. Um, anyway, let's proceed. Nel mezzo di camminare nostra vita, mi ritrovai per una selva oscura, che la dorita via era smarrita, ahi quanto a dir quale era cosa d'ora. Este selva selvaggia a asparea forte, tel ne pensia, rinnova la piora. In the middle of our life's journey, I found myself in a dark forest, for the straight path was lost. Alas, it's hard to say which one it was, this wild, harsh, and strong forest that renews fear in thought. The next section from Inferno is from the first canto as the previous one, and it is simply a summary, an abridged reading of when Dante meets the poet Virgil of Roman Empire fame. And it's somewhat interesting. The context is that as Dante is wandering around this dark, deserted wood, he encounters a she-wolf who looks somewhat threatening, and this figure appears out of nowhere and deters the she-wolf from attacking. And Virgil then addresses this wrath-like figure. While I was rushing downward to the lowland, before mine eyes did one present himself, who seemed from long continued silence hoarse. When I beheld him in the desert vast, have pity on me unto him, I cried, whiche'er thou art, a shade or real man. He answered me, not man, man once I was, and both my parents were of Lombardy, and Mantuans by country, both of them. Sub Julia was I born, though it was late, and lived at Rome under the good Augustus during the time of false and lying gods. And I to him, poet, I thee entreat, by that same God whom thou didst never know, so that I may escape this woe and worse. Thou wouldst conduct me there where thou hast said, that I may see the portal of St. Peter, and those thou makest so disconsolate. Then he moved on, and I behind him followed. Well, that wraps up this edition of Robert Reads, where we took a look at the work of Dante Alighieri and took a sip from the great literary soup that comprises the Divine Comedy. I'm going to close us out with an excerpt of the very last canto of Inferno, which describes Dante's and Virgil's ascent and emergence from hell. To get back up to the shining world from there, my guide and I went into that hidden tunnel, and following its path, we took no care to rest, but climbed, he first, then I. So far through a round aperture I saw appear some of the beautiful things that heaven bears, where we came forth and once more saw the stars.